You can go down.
Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Can we please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Kearns. Here. Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Bolin.
Here.
Councilmember Motney. Here. Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Becker.
Here.
Councilmember Ward. Here. Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Here.
The next item on the agenda is recognition and appointment. And the first one is proclamation for National Historic Preservation Month. And I have a proclamation to read here from the mayor. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission was created in 1983 and has since been convened by dozens of committees and passionate volunteers. And whereas the city of Bloomington has been a certified local government since 1985, demonstrating a long-term commitment to working with state and federal partners to uphold national historic preservation standards. And whereas the city of Bloomington partners with organizations throughout the community to celebrate and implement a thriving downtown, revitalization programs in historic downtown, including First Fridays, the Downtown Farmers Market, Small Business Saturday, networking events, promotional events, and the Harry Fuller Russ Facade Grant Program. And whereas the city of Bloomington is celebrating 18 years in downtown Bloomington as an accredited Main Street America program with more than 130 locally owned businesses. And whereas the theme of the National Preservation Month, People Saving Places, embodies the very real work that historic place savers do by pouring their time, energy, and resources into protecting places they care about and inspiring others to join the effort for generations to come. And whereas the city of Bloomington, through our code, our financial commitments, and our celebrations of place, supports historic preservation efforts throughout the year. Now, therefore, I, Mboka Mwambe, Mayor of Bloomington, Illinois, do proclaim May 24th as National Preservation Month and do call upon the people of Bloomington to join other communities across the nation in recognizing and participating in this observance. And you must be from the Preservation Commission.
I am. I am the Vice Chair of the Preservation Commission. My name is Paul Charnett. Just want to say thank you all very much. It's important to us to know that the city is committed as we serve and all of those around us. And we are excited to continue on the same tradition that we have. We love it here and we want to make it better every day. And sometimes that involves looking backwards to inform what we need to do moving forwards. So thank you.
Okay, I have an official proclamation to hand you. Would you like to?
Sure.
Do you have anybody to take pictures?
We'll take a picture.
Please, I didn't even see you there.
Yeah, all members of the
Okay.
Preservation
I didn't want to
Commission.
see you. I'm a-
You're just a representative of everybody as you come up here. And thank you for all the work that you do and the volunteer hours you put in. The next proclamation is for EMS Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained member of the public, and out-of-hospital care providers. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value of the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating the Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, I invoke Mwambe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, in recognition of this event, hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week. The 50th anniversary of EMS Week theme is honoring our past, forging our future. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Oh,
Okay.
and who's the spokesman?
Yeah. Thank you for having us up here today. I just, this is probably the quietest it's been all day for all the calls going on. And right now, most of them are waiting for one to come in, so they didn't have to be put on the spot up here and come. We just have this proclamation. So just appreciate all the support from the council and everybody here tonight. And these guys do great work every day. They're busy. And I just appreciate everything they do for us and for the community. So thank you. Up there and get the proclamation.
This is real official. Ooh, suitable for framing, maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do. And now this is for Leslie. It's National or Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. Whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored vital part of local government, exists throughout the world And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, local government bodies, and agencies of government at all levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal services to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk services as an information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve administration of the affairs of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk, I therefore, Mboka Mwambe, Mayor of Bloomington, Illinois, do recognize the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2024 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks, Leslie Oakham, and Deputy City Clerk Amanda Stutzman, for the vital services they perform and the exemplary dedication to the city of Bloomington.
Thank you. I think the most important part in that was Amanda Stutzman and her being our deputy clerk. She stands ready to serve at any time. And this year, I just wanted to highlight, she also finished up an international certified municipal clerk certification program. She's right behind me, so I'm going to have her come up and accept it. And then she also finished the state's version of that, which is an RMC. And so anyway, it's been a busy year for her. It usually takes someone 3 years to do the state's version and 5 years to do the international. And she did it in about 3 years' time and also delivered a baby shortly after. So round of applause for her. Just an incredible year. And thank you for service.
Oh, Leslie, you have to be up there. Do you want to say something? Oh, oh. Well, now that my voice is hoarse, no, I'm kidding. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Oh, really quick, we just have recognition of boards and commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Also. All right, so I don't know where our slides are, but we want to recognize Sharon Zeck to the library board. And then also, there they are, also Diana Lewis to the Bloomington Housing Authority. And I believe Diana is present. Thank you for your service. And now to public comment. We just actually have one person that registered. We received no emailed public comment. And so after you read your statement, we'll have Karen Kinsella speak.
Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased.
Hello, my name is Karen, and I live about 5 blocks from the homeless camp, and I'm here to talk about that tonight. I'm here to express the tremendous risk to public safety that this homeless camp has become, and I don't think the public is aware of it. I have passed out, I requested a FOIA on the police calls and all the fire calls since the inception of this camp in August of 2023. And I can tell you the stress of living down from this homeless camp has been tremendous for myself and for my neighbors. It was supposed to be disbanded on December 15th, but it was not. So I saw the article where there gives a 60-day time period for this to be disbanded, but I'm sorry, but I don't believe it. I think it might be a stall tactic, and I'd like to share with everybody here the actual what's going on at that camp. The police have been there 122 times. Since in August, they were there once, October 3 times, November 5 times, then in December, when it was deemed to be permanent, it was 8 times, then 19 times in January, 28 times in February. There's, I'm sorry, 28 times in February. There's 28 days in February, 32 times in March, and 24 times in April as of April 23rd. May 1st or 2nd, I went to go work out at the Y. I shared this all with you. I was zoomed by several police officers. There was a huge brawl at the camp. There were at least 6 or 7 cars, police cars there. It was absolute chaos. There was screaming, yelling, punching, and 2 people, I believe, were taken in an ambulance. Imagine, again, living down from this camp. I think all of you would be in my position right now. I spoke with the CEO of Home Sweet Home Ministries, and I asked them how they control the camp. And they said they do vet the people who are there, but they have no control, no to little control to friends, to girlfriends, boyfriends, friends, or just acquaintances that they happen to invite at the camp with them. I have 2 police reports that I stapled there where 2 sex offenders were invited to the camp. One was a sex offender of an adult. The other one was for a child. The police reports don't lie. They both spent time there. I believe the first one stayed there for days. The second one was there. I understand that Eastview Christian Church, they allow the residents to shower at their facilities. So who's monitoring who goes into their facilities? There's children. During the time when the police were there, during the utter chaos, the big fight, there were children playing in the background. It was unbelievable. So I believe this camp needs to move ASAP, not 60 days. It needs to be moved immediately. I'm not sure how it got to the center of town, so close to the library, so close to children's parks, so close to the town, but it needs to move to an appropriate place where people who have this many problems can be appropriately addressed. It's a system or a place set up for failure for the residents.
Thank you.
And it certainly is a tremendous public health or risk to myself and my fellow neighbors. So please, I implore you to
Okay,
move
thank
this
you.
camp
Thank you. The
ASAP.
time is,
Okay.
your 3 minutes is up. We
Okay.
appreciate what you're talking about and we are working on it.
Okay, thank you. I just want a quicker timetable. It's going to be summer. It was a 60-day. It's going to be July. That's going to be midsummer. Yeah, so that's,
Well, we appreciate it. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
There's no further public comment.
Pardon me?
No further public comment.
No, thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is the consent agenda. Before I ask for motion, is there anyone that would like to pull an item? I see none. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Crumpler, second by Councilmember Dannenberger. Do I vote?
You can go ahead and take it, Lance, since Cody is out. There you go. And just for the record, there were no nays to announce.
Okay, the next item is regular agenda, presentation of the McLean County Regional Planning Commission Regional Housing Recovery Plan. And I will hand this over to City Manager Jorgens.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight, we're going to start the discussion of housing and some of the housing needs in our community. And to do that, we've asked Ray Lai and Mark Adams from the McLean County Regional Planning Commission to come forward and present a report that they worked on previously. We will talk a little bit tonight about this. And then at the Committee of the Whole, we will continue the discussion on our housing needs, where we will have some additional speakers come and present to the council. The council can ask questions and dive into this a little further. So with that, I would turn it over to Ray Lai. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, as well as the City Manager. As Mr. Jones said, we are from the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. Ray Lai, the Executive Director, and then with me, our Committee Planner, Mark Adams. And with thanks again for the opportunity to present this regional housing recovery plan that was adopted just recently by the Regional Planning Commission. And we appreciate the participation of the mayor and certain members of the council during the 7-month process. I mean, I remember seeing some of you at the public forum, so appreciate for coming also. This plan, we got a grant from the state department, DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Development. And after a 7-month process, along with many opportunities for public comments, public engagement, data collection, analysis, to a point where we had a draft plan also made available for public comment and also final adoption with the assistance of by a planning consultant on housing. And so the plan is done. Really the purpose, if someone can help me to move the next slide, please. Yeah, the purpose of the plan really is to do research and analysis as well as coming up with recommendations and implementation strategies for the recovery of the housing sector from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all aware. Next, please. Yeah, like I said, there was a 7-month process. But it wasn't very long, but it wasn't short either. But it went through all the steps involving a lot of opportunities for public comment and public input. So it's a 7-month process, a lot of steps. We had a steering committee made up of representatives from different sectors, different representation from private to public, including staff from the city as well. Next, please. So as I said, a lot of opportunities for committee engagement, including a survey that we sent out and asked people to help. And so we received about 1,200 responses. That's phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, a majority of them, about 2/3 of them, came from the city residents and households actually. And so there were also interviews, one-on-one interviews, and also group interviews, stakeholder workshops, public forum. The mayor and some members of the council attended. It was, if you recall, it was a cold January evening, but we had really a large interest from the community and also elected officials to come and participate. And so also we had a draft plan put together and also to allow public comments before it was finalized. And after it was finalized, the Regional Planning Commission did consider and also adopted the plan. And I believe the administration probably, if you will forward a copy of the plan if they haven't not done that already for your review in more in depth of what the document is like. And next, please. In terms of the survey, there were many questions that we asked of the households. There were 23 questions. This is just one example, and you may review the document, but this is one example. Well, the question was, since the beginning of the pandemic, what kind of difficulty in affording your housing costs, and how much really is it like a cost burden in kind of different things that you really make on housing costs. So the result was 50-50. And this is just one of the 23 questions asked. Now, their total result is available on our website, the MCRPC website, which is mcplan.org. Then it has a dashboard capturing the results of the survey, if you're interested. And next, please. Just few pictures of that standing room only housing forum on January 9th. You may recognize some of the faces too. Next, please. Key findings from all those opportunities for public engagement, starting with the limited affordability, something that you are probably aware anyway, which is the lack of affordable housing options, and also for specific demographics, because we know there are people from young professionals to families with kids, with families without kids, or young couple with kids, really seniors and really full spectrum. So that the needs for different types of housing types that should be considered. Next is the diversity of housing, which is limited. So in our community, as you all know, a lot of the housing is pretty much single family detached, but also there's options, or the people look for other options, such as detached, multi-family, but then also attached, single family, really variety of housing types that would fit the needs of the different populations. Barriers to access, the upfront cost is pretty high, especially for people looking for rental properties, that they have to put up money, for checking into whether they even qualify to get a credit check and other things, or put down a few months of payments, right? As we all know, and the security deposit and all the different expenses to them. So it's also posed a barrier. Another item that we found or learned from the findings is the competitive market. We know because of low vacancy, there's not of many units available, and also the price range, they might not fit to certain households or buyers. And so whether from the rental market or the owner occupy, or even to date, we learned that there are many people looking to rent single family homes. And so it's very competitive, with multiple parties competing for one single, unit of housing. Last but not least, is public concerns. We range from limited accessibility in terms of public transportation, or NIMBYism, not in my backyard type of mentality, and also the need for diverse representation in different planning efforts. So these are what we have found and learned, from the public input. Next, please. The next few slides just capture some of the graphs and some of the data that we have collected, and you'll find more. Actually, this is just some samples. The graphs on the left, it kind of indicate Vivian, being the second largest employer in the area. Since they add more people, more employees, which is a good thing. It's good employment opportunities. But again, then it leads to more demand for housing. And this is not just for people who live locally, but also people moving in from out of state or out of this area. So to the extent that some people have to commute almost like 45 minutes or more one way, just to be able to go to and from work. And then on the right-hand side, just a breakdown of the type of occupation categories where they do have to commute in terms of distance. And so we just break down that just for our own information. Next slide, please. This left and right, it shows the number of units that have been approved and also active in both the city and the town. And for the city on the left-hand side, you can tell there's a lot more multifamily units that you have been approved, that you have approved. And then, but then on the right-hand side for the town of Normal, they also have a number of single-family detached units that they have approved. And what it's telling us is we combining both. Actually, there's like over 1,000 units. So thanks for your assistance in helping the supply chain, so to speak. But then also there are other factors whether the developer will proceed with those projects or not, and there are a number of factors that will play into it. So your approval plays a key role, but then also there are others that have to be taken into consideration. Next, please. This chart similar to the other one, but except this is for the unincorporated county. Numbers are relatively smaller, less than 30 each year for the last several years. But most of them are detached single-family homes. Next, please. Rise in homelessness. The one on the left shows is from the Housing Coalition of the area, McLean County Housing Coalition. But what it shows is that there's definitely, because of the declining vacancy rates and also the rental costs, that a lot of people have no choice but go homeless, go unhoused. And this is consistent with the national picture, which is reflected on the right-hand side on the graph. Next slide, please. Again, from 2000 to 2023, the multifamily vacancy rate has dropped. It just reflected. But then on the right-hand side, it's correspondingly the effective rent per square foot has gone up, especially the last 5 years. Next, please. Rising home costs equal to also rising home values, but also there's a breakdown on the left-hand side, which shows the cost of the housing burden for our residents, both in the city and the town. And then the single-family home vacancy rate on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, for the city is under 4%, pretty consistent with the town of Normal. But that also tells us that there's not many units available. But while supply, I mean not supply, but then the demand is pretty high. Next, please. Housing stock, we all know most of the housing, about 50, 60 years old. That means maintenance, preservation is another area that can be considered that would keep the housing stock in good quality, but then also quantity. Next, please. Next few slides, Mark is going to go over the strategic recommendations contained in the plan, and that's very important because it's an area that we need your help, and we need the help of governmental entities and others and community members collectively, collaboratively to help at least to get started on this.
So looking at the high level goals from the plan, this includes coordinating regional resources, which first and foremost starts off with establishing an intergovernmental housing implementation committee, which would have not just elected officials, but also leaders in the field, from developers, from the healthcare, that's really cross-sectoral. And obviously the work won't be done on its own. And so it does require people behind that to really push what is feasible. And then part of this goal is also just defining specific goals, metrics, performance tracking, and partnerships. Specifically for the tracking purposes, just having some sort of action plan, just a brief action plan of what are we trying to accomplish this year or next year, that can kind of serve as a roadmap. And that's usually a best practice. Goal number 2 in the plan is for recommendations is the assigning or hiring of a housing coordinator. And that housing coordinator would work on a systemic level that would really facilitate and help to facilitate the increase of affordable housing. And this would basically be throughout the county and really looking at creating a resource guide, facilitating the collaboration between stakeholders and using an inventory for informed decision making. So it's really connecting the dots, if you will, making sure that the people who are in charge of development have knowledge of all the resources that are available, from grant opportunities, tax credit programs. It's affordable housing and housing in general is very hard to navigate, especially for local developers. And so we acknowledge that here in the plan. So next slide, please. Goal number 3 is increase access to information and resources. This includes developing a centralized housing information hub. This would be things like how many tax credit units, or sorry, LIHTC or low income housing tax credit units are in the community, keeping tabs on which areas might be prime for development. And so there's that need for a centralized information. Also includes launching a housing education campaign to share with the community what are the causes of homelessness, what are the systemic causes, and also what does affordable housing look nowadays? It looks totally different than in the past. And knowing that we need to make sure our teachers and can afford to stay here locally and live here locally is important as well. Extending Housing Stability Navigator program. If you're familiar, of course, the Housing Stability Navigator in the top right there, this individual works at Mid-Central Community Action on a one-on-one case management level, working with precariously housed individuals who are not necessarily unsheltered completely, but they are at risk, and they serve on that one-on-one basis. Goal number 4 is expanding housing development opportunities, which is really where the city, town, and county has really a one-to-one a role if they choose to do so. Conducting review of housing ordinances, establishing overlay districts, developing inclusionary zoning ordinances, and expanding housing mix options. The overlay districts, of course, is kind of like a multi-layered cake. Essentially, you have maybe one area, a parcel, a very small district that you would like to develop a little bit more, but it's currently developed, or rather zoned for commercial, and you just want to have another layer. That is a way to kind of expedite the process versus having to do a complete zoning overhaul. And that can also serve as kind of an experiment, if you will. It's much more on a smaller scale. And then inclusionary zoning ordinances, of course, are the requirements for certain development projects to have a certain percentage for units that are affordable. That might be 10%, 15% of those units are affordable to give an example, 80% area median income or less. So those are all very best practices, very common throughout the country. Next slide, please. Goal 5 and 6. 5 is maximizing funding and partnerships, establishing an affordable housing trust fund, advocating for state level economic development policies, supporting local land banks and community land trusts, and partnership with opportunities for preservation and maintenance. The 2 that I like to call out here is establishing affordable housing trust fund. Many municipalities, I was just reading about the city of Columbus, Ohio earlier, most municipalities on a bigger scale have some sort of housing trust fund. There's a national housing trust fund, but it basically is a pot of funding where public and private entities can donate. And that funding is solely for the purpose of advancing affordable housing, whether that's development, whether that's tax credits, whatever that may be. It's a pot of funding that can be used for that development purpose, whether it's rehab or new construction. And then with the local land banks and land trusts, I'm a fan of not reinventing the wheel. We do have the Central Illinois Land Bank Authority that serves Danville, Decatur, and Champaign County. Essentially, that does require an agreement with whichever organization or area that they're serving, but they do basically take homes, rehabilitate them in more slower markets. So this is more common in, like I said earlier, more rural communities. And so that would be really appropriate in more rural communities in McLean County, but certainly can serve different localities. And then with Land Trust, there's the Bloomington Normal Community Land Trust. They are pursuing their 501c3 status currently, and that land trust essentially is trying to acquire single-family homes, for example, that need some love, they need some work, and would basically try to basically issue a 99-year ground lease. That would basically bring the purchase price of that home, and that homeowner would own the home, but they would just simply lease the land. There's over about 300 land trusts in the country, so they're very common, but there's just not really that many in our region. Goal number 6 is supporting vulnerable populations, coordinating with the state. That's the Illinois Housing Development, or IDA, through listening sessions, securing Behavioral Health Coordinating Council funding. The McLean County Behavioral Health Coordinating Council has their mental health action plan, and pages 71 through 75 does explicitly show the support for advancing permanent supportive housing and the services of the like. So there is that resource as well, and facilitating the public endorsement match for the low income housing tax credit, or LIHTC applicants. If you're not familiar with LIHTC and you want to know a little bit about affordable housing, you start off with LIHTC. It funds about more than 90% of affordable housing in our country. And that's also with the PSH units, or permanent supportive housing. Next slide, please. Goal 7 is increasing access to information and resources. This includes collaborating with employers to support housing. We know that there are employers here locally, not just Ferraro, but we also have Rivian, who are expanding, and we have an obligation to really support that growth, but that also means making sure that they can retain their employees and that they can live here locally, so that that tax base is not lost. And this would also include initiating a landlord risk recovery fund, also known as a landlord mitigation fund. This is a best practice. One of the better state examples we've seen is the city of Rockford. It's essentially a second security deposit that can be publicly and privately funded for landlords who are taking on the precariously housed, and they need that additional security because they know that they're taking on that risk essentially. So those are the 7 goals. And next slide, please. And Ray will take next steps and we'll wrap up.
This our last slide. Committee. These are more the immediate steps. Also, there are more things really needs to be taken. Committee presentations. This is one of like the presentations we're doing around town, not just to the public sector, public bodies, but also the committee organizations and other groups that might be interested in having us. Really, the goal is to educate the community about the depth and the width of the housing issues that we are trying to address. The other thing is to form an implementation committee. We are still kind of looking into what's a better model of setting up this implementation committee. We recognize this would not be just one agency or one office because it's a committee-wide issue. And so we are looking to see how other best practices out there we can learn from to implement a kind of regional committee, but it for a committee-wide issue that really takes a lot of cooperation. So we try and look into that. The next step also, which we have started working on, is look for grant opportunities. Happy to learn that just most recently, the CEO also issued a NOVO, the Notice of Grant Opportunity, for implementation grant, like for the grant that is gave us on the planning grant. So we're looking into that, and also there are a couple other grant opportunities that we're also exploring. And so this is an ongoing thing. This doesn't stop here, but there's certain immediate steps that we already start working on. But we need your help, and we will have more conversations, hopefully, with the administration and with the council in how we all work together. Not just with MCRPC, but with other partners in the region for this housing issue. But thanks for the opportunity. I don't know if we have time for take question or until next week or something.
We have 15 minutes, I believe, or 10 minutes for questions, 15 minutes for questions tonight.
I didn't even realize my light was on, but at the same time, I will ask one question. Mark, you mentioned taking on the precariously housed. Could you just define what you mean by saying taking on the precariously housed?
Certainly, it's just so first and foremost, precariously housed just refers to individuals who do not meet the HUD, Housing of Urban Development definition of homeless. So HUD has always had the definition that homeless means you have nowhere to go and you're on the streets. But homelessness is much more complicated in that you have individuals who children who are just staying with a second guardian and they aren't guaranteed or they don't have a stable roof over their head. So precariously housed just means that they don't meet that definition, but they are not stably housed and could end up on the streets in a day, 2 days, couple weeks, because they don't have that support. In terms of taking on, it just simply, I'm referring to basically there is a very clear risk when you're taking on someone who has chronic homelessness, someone who has mental health disabilities that can prevent them from paying their rent 100% on time. And so what you see there is basically individuals who have those barriers need the support so that those payments are made. So in a sense, taking on just simply means you are taking on that risk. And I think it can be a very scary risk, but again, part of what a mitigation fund or incentive fund does is it provides that security to that landlord that if I do have trouble, I know that I can have another security deposit so that I'm not falling behind on my mortgage or that rent. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Councilmember Ward.
Yes, thank you for this presentation and I'm so excited to have the beginning of this conversation or the next step in this conversation. It's certainly not the beginning of the conversation. I just had a couple of questions. I was really happy to hear you mention that you're already pursuing some state level grants and perhaps grants from other sources. I'm wondering if any of those grants that you're aware of might have any impact on helping people with, as far as you talk about the land trusts, obviously they wouldn't own the land, but they would own the house that's built on the land. We have resources out there to help people make repairs, homeowners make repairs on their existing properties that they own. Any grants that might be available to help people with down payments and things like that, because you don't go from necessarily just renting an apartment or living on someone's couch to having the money for a down payment to being a homeowner. Is that something you'd be looking into?
We definitely that's on our radar. The most recent ones that we've been kind of brought to our attention, they're not for those situations that you just described, but definitely we would open to any grant opportunities, and if there's something that maybe not on the regional level, but then it's better to be implemented on the municipal level, we definitely would share those with your staff. And I know that in the past, for some of the programs for incentives to help to like pick up additional land or lot right next to existing owners, this type of programs, definitely we could provide some more information with your staff if there's any interest. But that is something, not at least at this point, that is pending that we intending to pursue. Because those not available, the ones that you just described, but there are other grants that are looking for kind of implementing the plan, so to speak. More so could be looking at like a zoning code or potentially hiring a housing coordinator. There's a potential for those grants that we are looking at right now, issued by the state and also from the Realtor Association.
And then one other question, we've had, as I was reading through the report, I was struck by the number of times that people were talking about high property taxes being an issue in the area. And certainly this council has heard from the public numerous times about property taxes. And I'm wondering, is there any discussion at all, particularly in the land trust circles, about land value taxation?
So in terms of the land trusts, one of the best practices in terms of looking at land trusts and specifically property taxes, and for the record, out of all of the things that when it comes to any kind of land trust, taxes tend to be one of the most challenging things to get through, because the best practice is to make sure that the land trust is working with the county assessor to come up with basically a fair market value, and making sure that as the value of that property escalates, that the taxes are not are matching the affordability level, if that makes sense. So basically what happens is you have a set value, and that home is not being essentially flipped.
I guess what I was specifically talking about the land value tax idea. The idea that rather than taxing people for making improvements on their property, you actually tax people who perhaps are out of town landowners who aren't the ones who are showing up here complaining that their taxes are going up. And there are people who are holding on to blighted properties, for example, and doing nothing with them.
Yeah, and with any kind of land bank or land trust, the goal is to rehab that and get it into the hands of people who would historically not have access to that home. But ideally, the homeowner there is still paying something in property taxes. But it's not that full rate because of the affordability aspect. So, and that's all part of the stewardship model. So I hope I answered your question. If there's any, do you have any follow-up?
No, I think it's for a larger conversation.
It is. It's a very complicated issue.
It is. It's a much bigger issue to look at. You know, whether if say out of town owners hold on to property which affect the neighborhoods or the next door neighbor, whatever the value, and with whom the properties they have to pay for the tax they're affecting. It's a much deeper, bigger thing to look into. I don't know, actually maybe some national, we can research in some national organization, maybe the Lincoln Center policy that they have looking at. This is like almost like a national situation too. We know other.
The city of Detroit's doing a lot with this.
Yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Crumpler?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm trying to better understand the low-income housing tax credit, right? And so local landlords voluntarily participate in that. They choose to be a part of that. Is that correct?
Usually developers or nonprofits would be the applicant.
Okay.
And I believe the two recent applications, they're located in the city or the town, the Human Services, the center, is that located?
So the Center for Human Services received the Round 10 grant through the Illinois Housing Development Authority. That was a grant. Correct. That does not have LIHTC units though.
Okay. But typically it will be a developer that applied for, sometimes it could be a nonprofit, so-called nonprofit developer, or it could be a committee development corporation and to apply for those LIHTC programs. And it's very competitive. Every
Okay.
year, either we receive no applications, and usually if they wouldn't even consider like two awards for like a region or one municipality.
Right. Thank you. That helps. I guess my concern, and I don't expect you to, have an answer for this, but, as rental property rates continue to increase, wouldn't it be expected that our landlord would move that property into a market as opposed to accessing low-income housing tax credits? Is that the case?
They could. It's almost like you have considered many development proposals. You probably know that for any developer to proceed with the development is a lot of complications in terms of figuring out the formulas, if it works, the numbers works. Same thing for the LIHTC program. It's not just apply, right? They have to figure out, okay, if what they're proposing, how many number of units will make sense, what's the market for what type of housing units, and also all the maintenance costs to plug into a formula, and if it makes sense to even apply, because once they approve, and it's going to be for long term, like 20-some years, that kind of thing, and then they get some tax benefit. But in terms of multifamily, there's a House Bill 2621, I believe it was approved by the state, and actually encourages for new multifamily development. And also we have of existing multifamily developments that are more than 7 units, then they get some kind of tax abatement. So that's something maybe we should continue pushing and having more apartment owners to, when they have more than 7 units in the complex, then they can to take advantage of that too.
Okay. Thank you for this detailed report. I really appreciated all the visuals and the action items as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
To partly answer your question, Danbury Court and Lincoln Lofts are two recent, well, Danbury Court's been around for 20 years, but Lincoln Lofts falls into that tax credit building. So there's about 100 units there. Yeah. And there's several other around Bloomington. So
Thank you.
We have quite a few. Yeah. This question partly comes from the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council, because I was sitting on the housing board on that one. With this committee that's being set up and all these, projects that you might be implementing, the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council and just the service providers in general would get paid for success. Would that be the type of granting, especially if it's a local grant? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Do you mind clarifying that? Just want to make sure 100%.
Well, for mental health or drug abuse, or drug dependent individuals, they will go see a provider, and then the county, using the sales tax dollars, would pay for that. But the program has to kind of show success and be sustainable in order to continue getting funding. So, are these grants sustainable? Would the programs be sustainable if they're totally grant dependent? That's a real concern.
Sure.
You set something up and then 2 years later it collapses.
We recognize the behavioral health. There's some funding, and we recognize also there's some limitations or requirements that have to be met. And on this housing plan is not on like case management, if you will. We recognize actually a lot of funding probably will be geared toward that. So this is a little bit different than the typical funding, but we would explore and look into and probably have more conversations with the Behavioral Health Council members and the county, just see if how this would fit. It would not be fitting the typical, the funding with the council.
Okay, okay. Because we heard a public comment about the need for permanent supportive housing for the homeless and
Yes, yes.
most of the, I don't want to say most of the employees, the median income is 70,000, I guess, in McLean County. But if you look at the Rivian teachers, firefighters,
Yep.
even policemen,
Yep.
they earn less
Mhm.
than the median income.
Yep.
So, you know, and I started out in an apartment and, you know, had to
Mhm.
scrimp and save. So my focus really is not necessarily apartment complexes that are large, but the townhomes and the attached, because those are significantly cheaper,
Mhm.
but the community, I mean, the city still gets the tax revenue
Yep.
because the combined unit
Right.
is more tax generating
Mhm.
than if it was a single family home
Yep.
on,
Got it.
on that same property.
Yeah, understood.
So,
Yep, agreed.
You know,
Yep.
that's my focus for single family homes, but I think that affordability, it's gonna have to start with apartments if we're gonna, you
Yep.
know, get people off the street and
Yep.
have them have someplace to live. So,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to expand,
I
extend
make a motion to extend the discussion for 10 minutes
10,
or 5. Okay,
5? Start with 5?
sure. Let's start with
Okay,
5.
start with 5.
I'll second that.
All right, and I'll call the vote. Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Sure.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Martin.
Hey, I just wanted to get a clarifying question from you, Ray, if you don't mind. In the slide where you were showing the units shortage, I noted that you made the comment about people that have to commute. And I'm just wondering if you've netted out all the people who actively choose to commute. You know, having worked for our most local, largest employer here, I mean, we had people who want to stay in their hometowns. They want to stay where they have multi-generational families, or they just prefer a more rural lifestyle. So I just wanted to clarify the units claimed. Have you netted out those who actively choose to commute here?
I don't think we did, correct me. Yeah, and, but it's just, and I agree with you, they're for different reasons, why people choose to commute just because of job or because they cannot find housing, or other reasons. And it's the survey, I don't think it will ask that cut the second tier, third tier, the reasons why. So you want to add something to it?
So just an observation, again, from, you know, decades of van pools operating here and things like that. That wasn't because of a unit shortage. That is just because, you know, a lot of people really love the environment they live in a smaller town. You don't have to go past this room to find people who meet that criteria. So, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mark has extra comments to make, but we also get anecdotal information from the employer, actually. So, because they've heard from the employees or potential employees. So that's also another reasons why we know for sure that people want to make the decision, not that they want to, but then to commute. Yeah.
So one of the things that wasn't on that slide and I think is good context is overall TPMA consultants using their housing demand model that really accounted for workforce expansion, which has been rapid, accounted for roughly about 7,800 units total short in McLean County. And so Rivian, what you saw there was just a small picture. And so you did see that again, that the workforce went from about 900 to 9,000 in about 2 years. That has put a tremendous strain on our housing market. And so the other side of that is absolutely not everybody who lives 45 minutes away wants to live here. But the catch there is until there's more housing, that demand is going to continue to keep prices high for both rental and purchase. And we also know that really without meeting that demand head on, we can't get ahead of this. And so it's really just a matter of making sure that there's cross collaboration and that we are not trying to lose that tax base. Essentially, you have people who may be commuting, and it's hard to know how many, but you have.
I just want to make sure
Certainly.
Jenna has the time for
Yeah,
her questions.
I was,
So I'm
yeah.
just, thank you so much.
Of
So
course,
thank you for that additional context.
certainly, go ahead.
Ray, Mark, thank you for this great presentation. Thank you everyone for your engagement in it. I guess we've been talking about this in terms of being part 1 of 2. And so I don't know if it's necessarily a question for the 2 of you, but maybe additionally the city manager of what do we hope we're gonna get out of part 2 next week? Like, you know, what are our goals for next time?
Thanks. That's a great question. And I think it's just more fine tuning what the need is. So you heard the report tonight from the Regional Planning Commission. Next week, you'll hear some more kind of testimony, have some more ability to have some conversation with people in this field. And so part 1 really is about finding out what is that need, and hopefully the council can come to a consensus on what number do you need to pursue, or what incentives, or, you know, moving forward with some of the recommendations in the recovery plan report, engaging with some of these committees, or putting other resources towards some of this. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. I'm excited that we can continue this conversation, and I hope that we can get to the action phase. I'm ready for that.
Collaboration. Okay, we'll move on to item B on the regular agenda. And that's presentation on the status of and next steps for the downtown streetscape project. And I'll pass it off to City Manager Jurgens.
And I'm going to go directly to Deputy City Manager Tyus on this.
Thank you, Senior Manager Jurgens and Mayor Pro Tem Bolin and Council. Even though you approved the streetscape plan and funding for the construction drawings for the first project, we still hear from people who are saying what's happening, or if they're asking, is anything happening, or is it ever going to happen? So we thought an update might be good. We'll be brief tonight, though. Next slide, please. The other thing I would say is that things are already happening, and that CMT has actually hit the ground running. What they're doing now is that item that you approved at the April council meeting, along with the streetscape plan, which is creating detailed construction drawings. Surveyors are downtown. They're doing the work, as you can see from that picture from last week. Anybody who's been downtown may have seen some of those folks down there doing survey work that will be collecting data for those construction drawings, and that'll be a critical part of putting those drawings together. There's other work to happen as well. The thing that I will say about this early phase is that it's important, but it's not exciting to people necessarily. And there isn't a lot of out front things to see or to report on. And so there's a lot of engineering stuff that's not exciting to a lot of folks. Sorry, Kevin. But they're doing the work, and the work is happening. And we want people to know that. One of the things that we know will be very, very important is unveiling a community outreach plan, and to both keep people informed about what's happening, the behind the scenes stuff that'll be happening over the next several months, but also to continue the momentum of this project. We will unveil that in the summer of this year, obviously. And what that'll happen, that'll involve a lot of different things, everything from attending events to providing materials, to providing updates to the website, to just other things yet to be determined, to keep this at the top of mind for people, so they know that this project and the design work is still happening, and also to keep them informed as to what that work is. In terms of this design work that's happening now, it's a lot different than what you saw in the streetscape planning. It's a deeper dive that allows CMT to put together actual construction bid documents to go out to bid for this project. And the anticipated timeline for that is that the first project would go out to bid in December of 24, with work actually starting in March of 25, again, subject to council approval, as we've talked about from day one. Even though that may seem like a ways off, we're planning a to be determined informational kickoff in the summer or fall, and that will be more than just handing out pamphlets. It'll be a bigger kickoff that's not necessarily tearing up streets because you won't have approved anything as of yet, but something that really shows people that work is progressing. Next slide, please. One of the other things that's happening is that staff and CMT are working to identify grant opportunities to help pay for some of this in the event that you approve it. Last month, I believe earlier this month, the state issued a NOFO for a notice of funding opportunity for the Rebuild Downtowns and Main Street program with the deadline of July 22nd. We feel like this grant is this project, or the first project that we've identified, the Main Street project, checks all the boxes for this grant. It's a state capital grant to revitalize commercial corridors and downtowns. It's got to be in a commercial corridor. It's got to be in proximity to public facing businesses, which we have. Got to address barriers to economic growth, which we've talked about. And the projects that are eligible are all the things would be doing, to include roads and sidewalks, transit facilities, pedestrian or bicycle infrastructure, broadband, water and sewer, public spaces, and investments in structures. The award amounts are between $250,000 and $2 million. So again, not the total cost, but we see these grants as being a piece of a funding puzzle, and we're ready to get $2 million for this. Then that could go towards the cost of that first project, again, if it were to be approved. Deadline is July 22nd. We do plan to apply. And so again, we've been looking for grants to help fund this work. Next slide, please. Another grant, there's a webinar actually on Wednesday that we're going to be participating in, is the OSLAD grant, the Open Space Lands Acquisitions and Development Grant. We would expect the grant to open soon and be awarded this year as well. It's a state program for acquisition or development of land for public parks, and keyword open space. As you know, as we've talked about, the North Main portion of this first project is meant both for parking, obviously, but it's a multi-faceted space that's also for activities and seating and performance space as well, potentially. And so when you talk about amphitheaters and band shells, it is our hope and our expectation that this area could qualify for this type of grant as well. Again, not a huge grant, up to $600,000, but again, it's potentially a piece of the puzzle. We're continuing to look for grants. We don't know if this project qualifies for this. We'll learn more on Wednesday. But again, with the eCivis grant system that we recently purchased, we're also looking in that system to see what other grants might be available for this project. So there's a lot of grant work happening now. Next slide, please. And finally, parallel to the streetscape discussion has been a discussion about the establishment of a downtown TIF. We've talked to you about that. We've talked publicly about that as well. And that process kicked off in April. We had our first public meeting, not a hearing, on April 29th. There are a number of steps that are statutorily required as part of this process before it actually comes to you for consideration and hopefully approval. At the earliest, July 15th, and no later than September 29th. And I said we would give that range because there are dates and the number of days you got to have between publication and meeting, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a range there. We believe that TIF can be a critical part of helping to fund the streetscape work, but it's bigger than streetscape. This TIF is not just about funding streetscape. We have a couple of significant housing projects, developments in the downtown that are waiting to see if this TIF is approved because they would be in need of incentives to make those projects happen. And so I know we've talked about it as part of the streetscape work. We talk about it a lot because it's an important part of that, but it's also just as important to being able to help fund other development in our downtown. So that process is underway, and more to come here soon. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just real quick, thank you for the update. I really appreciate, the hearing about grant efforts. I wonder if Thorn Run is working at the federal level, if there might be opportunities for us, for them to help us secure maybe some federal or larger grants to fund this longitudinal project.
There absolutely will be, not for this year, because as the city manager said to you, they helped us to identify the projects for which we would pursue earmark funding this year. But one of the things that we have been told by people who do this who do grant work, and who have actually been successful in securing large grants. Allie Fields, who works for CMT, has been able to secure I believe, RISE grant funding. Don't hold me that, but I believe that she has said, and others have said, this project, parts of this project could be very well suited for the RISE grant funding, which I believe it's up to $20 million, $20 to $25 million. And so not this round, we did not apply for this round because we weren't ready, obviously, but it could be something that we apply for in the coming year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Alderman, Councilmember Kearns.
Thank you. I am no TIF expert, so can you explain, or I guess my question is, when whatever is coming to us for approval, will that have details on, like, what level of detail of the TIF will we be approving? Because I think my real question is, will we know if we're looking, you're saying there's these housing developments that are looking for TIF, but are they the right housing projects for us? Do we want to incentivize, are those the projects we want to incentivize?
Great question. And here, there's two parts to how that works. There's the establishment of the TIF, which is the tool. So I think TIF honestly gets a bad name. It's a tool to help incentivize work within a designated boundary that has been defined to be eligible for TIF, blighted and declining property values, et cetera, et cetera. There's a number of different standards that a TIF has to meet. There is a plan that's been put together that says this is why it is believed that this area, this downtown, qualifies for a TIF. If the TIF district is established, then these housing developments, we would create what are known as redevelopment agreements that outline potential TIF increment incentives that would be given to these projects if you approve them. So there's the TIF, which is the tool, which can be used for a number of different things. It can be used for these development projects. It can be used for infrastructure investment. It can be used for some of the costs that are as part of the streetscape. It can be used to establish programs for downtown businesses, a number of different things that it can be used for. But then the other thing is these developments that when I say waiting for TIF, we're not saying it's guaranteed that they'll get TIF. You still have to approve a redevelopment agreement that says, for example, if this developer shows that this project doesn't happen but for an incentive, then you can say, for example, we will allocate 75% of the TIF increment that is generated from this development over a certain number of years. If the development doesn't generate any TIF increment, they don't get any money. But you would approve the actual agreement that says what they will do and how much they will get if their project generates increment. Did I answer that?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to be snarky for a minute. Is the housing downtown low income or affordable? You don't have to answer that. I haven't asked. I haven't asked that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We will for sure let you know as soon as we can.
Well, I mean, there are incentives that can be given also for percentage in a particular project.
And the other thing is there's multiple projects. So there's more than one project that is hoping for this.
Yeah, I think maybe the subtext of my question was, approving a TIF, like you said, is one thing to approve the area, but on the understanding that we're approved, I would want to approve it for a certain reason and not see the TIF being used to things that I don't think are worth it.
No, understand completely. We're out of time. The only thing I would say is that I wouldn't, and perhaps I should have clarified this. I don't want to confuse the creation of a TIF with it only being for one thing or one project. There are a million different kinds of projects that you can help fund with a TIF district. They could be these projects that we've talked about. There could be other projects that will come forward to meet the needs that you want to see. And the other thing I will say is that with housing, at least for us, and there are a couple of housing projects, as I said, we need affordable housing, we need market rate housing, we need higher end housing, we need it all. It's based on what we've seen. And so these tools can be used to help fund all of that if you approve it.
Yeah, and I totally get what you're saying, and I just want to reiterate that I want to approve a TIF that has vision, so that I get there's kind of endless things we could do with it, but what do we hope we're gonna get out of this TIF?
Okay. We'll move on to city manager discussion. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We probably could have had a 30-minute council meeting tonight, but we saw an opportunity to move up the discussion on the regional housing report and thought it was wise to highlight some of the things going on with Streetscape and with the TIF. So thank you for your indulgence in that as we continue to work on those issues. I have 6 slides I wanted to share tonight. The first one is on homelessness. On last Monday, May 6th, we held a meeting. Actually, Deputy City Manager Tice and I reached out to Kathleen Lorenz in her capacity with the United Way, and she helped us call a meeting. We had 16 different governmental entities, service providers there. It was a very good meeting. Had about 30 people there where we were discussing the issue of homelessness, trying to get a group back together to really roll up our sleeves and tackle the issues that we're seeing and facing. This was just the start of what will be many meetings, and we are going to continue to work truly every day to figure out a better solution for the issues that we're seeing. One thing, as was mentioned in public comment, we are very concerned about the hot summer coming. We do not believe that the current encampment is a good solution, so we're working on new solutions and hoping to get the service providers together so that they can lead that charge. So just wanted to share that with the council and the community. Next slide, please. The library is currently closed. They are in the process of unpacking 3,000 boxes. They will reopen at 5 p.m. on Thursday, and then they'll probably close again for a little bit after they get through some programming and finish the unpacking. This summer, they'll be doing a soft opening before they have a ribbon cutting. But I would encourage you, I know that a lot of the council was there for the retreat, but the library looks fantastic. It's going to be a great asset for the community. I've joked that the new community room there is my favorite room in the entire city, having a lot of different functions and events there. And that's where we held the homelessness meeting. So just wanted to put on your radar that things are moving forward with the library, and it will be open in full capacity soon. Next slide is the O'Neill Pool. The ribbon cutting on this will be May 24th, Friday, May 24th, and then it will be open to the public the next day on Saturday, May 25th. So again, another asset we're really excited about. This is going to be great for the community, great for the West Side. I know Councilmember Ward will be having a special event with some neighbors there as well. And so we are really looking forward to that being open and available to the community. Next slide. Just a quick update on a road work project. So this is Towanda Avenue between Orleans and I can't remember the other street, but right in front of Growmark, the Illinois Farm Bureau and Country Financial. This is, one of those roads where somebody might say it's kind of an embarrassment, but we are finally getting it repaired. The curb, gutter, sidewalk, the roadway going to be repaved, and it's going to be great as well. So we're really excited about this. This will be done hopefully, if weather permits, within 2 to 3 weeks. There will be some staging as they finalize this, and there will probably be more updates like this with the IDOT work, with all of the work that the community has for infrastructure. we're gonna try and do a better job of telling our story of when road work is occurring, where it's occurring, and what alternate routes people may need to try and take. So we would ask for the public's patience as we go through this over these next few years. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be a lot better for our community, and we're gonna have a lot better infrastructure. We will be rolling out at our last meeting in May what our plan is for work for the upcoming fiscal year. We are going to be able to hit, not to give too much away, but we're going to be able to hit some very public streets that are a big nuisance. I think a lot of people would agree to, that we're going to be able to make some good progress with. So we're excited about that, and that'll come forward at the last meeting in May. Next slide. Bulk pickup, talked to Public Works Director Mose Ricky this afternoon. This is his first bulk pickup as Public Works Director. It's gone very well. He's actually reallocated some resources, brought some street and sewers employees into this, and it's worked very well. They've been able to be on time, and so they've gotten very good positive feedback about that as well. And if you want more information on that, you can find it on the city's website. That should be completed by May 14th. And then the last slide is just an update on the Bison. Everywhere I go, there seems to be a lot of excitement about the hockey team that is coming to the city of Bloomington. And we're very excited about that. The affiliate, this team will have a national affiliate. It is being buttoned up, and that will be announced in a couple of weeks. And I'm told if you're a hockey fan, you're going to be very, very excited about this. So we are very excited about what's going on with the affiliate and with the team. Talked to the owner, Jim Hallett, today. He said that they are ecstatic about the number of tickets they've already sold, season tickets, about 500. He said when you compare that to other markets they're in, this is well exceeds that. It's very positive. They love the excitement that the community has for this team, and they are really excited to get things going. The schedule is ready. It will be released soon, but the first game will be in October. And so we are all very excited about that, and more to come, especially as they get closer to game time. So stay tuned on that. And that's all I have.
Council member discussion? Anybody? I see nobody. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move, we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Ward, second by Councilmember Becker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Got a minute.